Well, hello, podcasters. This is our first episode, and I am thrilled to have you here. I am so excited about this. And since this is our first episode, it just makes logical sense to me that I would take you on a journey, but I would start at the very beginning. And so before we do a formal introduction, I want to tell you this one thing first. Early on in the pandemic, it became increasingly apparent to me that this experience, 2020, was meant to be one thing in my life, and that was a womb. I knew something was brewing, and my heart was growing in ways it hadn't in a while. And while there has been an incredibly huge loss in my life personally and professionally due to COVID, it has also birthed some things that I never imagined and didn't see coming. The Uplift Effect, a website, a coaching and counseling business, a podcast, a Facebook group called Moms of the Uplift Effect. And I cannot be more excited to share this with you and to show you how this can make a difference in your life, because I've seen how it's made a difference in my own. So since this is the beginning, let's just get started. And let me take you on this journey and start you off at the very beginning. Welcome to the Uplift Effect podcast. Yes, our logo is a V formation. Yes, that was taken on my farm right over my home. And of course, there's a story there, and it's made all the difference in the world. And I cannot wait to tell you about it. But first, my name is Jill. I am the creator of the Uplift Effect. I am a professional therapist and coach who has specialized in childhood grief and trauma, and I transform moms and children from chaos to calm. If you're a parent who feels out of control, who has no real solid parenting plan, and are desperate to turn your own chaos into calm, well, this is your place, and I am glad that you are here. I was once in your shoes, feeling like I was failing at everything, and most importantly, I was failing my kids. As a stay-at-home mom of 4 children, to say that we were in chaos was putting it lightly. My story didn't change overnight, and in bits and pieces, I'll share it with you. But I used the same techniques that birds intuitively use when they are migrating in their feed formation, by way of community and a plan that's dependent on this little thing called, well, you guessed it, an uplift effect. They endure what would otherwise not be possible, and that's migrating for thousands and thousands of miles. I believe and I know that we can transform ourselves and our children. So when we wake up in the mornings, like I do now, I am incredibly thankful to call what I have now with my 4 children home. And so can you. So this podcast is for you, to encourage you, to teach you, to address some of the biggest, most difficult parenting challenges that we face as mothers. And I am so glad you are here as we journey and migrate through these miles together. Welcome to the Uplift Effect podcast. So in the spirit of explaining about this podcast, about the name, the Uplift Effect, and how that all came about, I decided to put together a little podcast here so that I could give you some of the background and also explain to you about that V formation, because you're going to see on most of my material the V formation of these birds that are migrating. And while all of us see that very commonly, what we don't know is what's actually going on there. The little side note about this is that V formation that you see in most of my content is an actual picture from my phone that I have going over my house one morning here on my farm. And it was the coolest thing, because this idea of putting together an online business where I would do coaching, counseling, and maybe a podcast and picking up blogging again, and all of this stuff had been on my mind. And I had thought about the uplift effect and had understood what happens in this V formation. And I had been looking for royalty-free pictures and was getting very frustrated with that process because I couldn't find just what I was looking for. And I told my boyfriend the night before, like, I just need those birds to fly over my house, like, soon, like, quickly. And they were frequently flying over the house. And so it just so happens to be the next morning I was taking the boys to school, and all of a sudden I hear like quack, 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 and they are so loud, and I drop everything. I'm like, here's my chance. And I grab my phone, and they are in a perfect V formation, and they go right over my house. And I have got some of the most amazing pictures of them coming towards the house and then leaving and going away. And I just knew deep inside of my spirit at that moment, like, yeah, this is meant to be. And so I never thought twice about it again. I immediately just took that as my sign that I needed and the confirmation that I had sort of been looking for, I think, and never kind of looked back since. And so that's kind of how that V formation came along in that picture. But the story of the birds migrating in a V formation is one that I think is important. It's a very natural, instinctual thing that these birds do as they're migrating. And as I studied more and more about it, the more I became moved that they know something that we are actually desperate for. And first of all, the idea of traveling and migrating in community is a huge thing. We are realizing in 2020 actually how much we were dependent upon community, because now our communities have all been very dispersed in ways that are very abnormal to us. And there's a lot of people struggling with that because they do not have their normal sense of community and interaction with people that they're used to. And that's why I wish I had kept my Zoom stock because we needed a way to stay in touch with each other. But the other thing is that there is this thing that happens by a bird being in the formation that they're in, where the bird in front and then the bird just behind it up just a little bit and the bird behind it just up a little bit and off to the side, that actually forms that chevron. What happens is the movement of one bird's wings and the exchange of that movement and how it changes the air and draft basically helps add some ease for the bird behind it, and therefore adds more ease for the bird behind it. And they rotate these positions constantly, like every couple seconds. Obviously, the bird in the front carries the brunt of the work, but those birds stay in communication with each other, and they are constantly rotating so that together they're able to travel thousands and thousands and thousands of miles that individually alone they would never be able to do. Matter of fact, if one bird gets out of sequence, very quickly is met by the resistance and the turbulence of the air and the pressure, and basically has to force itself back into position in order to survive. And I began to become very moved by a few things with that. Number one is the importance and the power of community. As a grief and trauma therapist, that can be such a powerful thing, but we are often very, very resistant to it because we are uncomfortable sometimes with our own emotions. But I have seen group work be very powerful because of that dynamic with each other in a group. But the other thing I noticed is that I carry a burden for women and for mothers who are younger than me, but I know that we could provide support to each other. The women who have gone farther than me offer support and encouragement to me. And then the women who are still coming up behind me, that are still raising very young children, that we could help ease their journey by being a part of this with them. And so that is where the V formation and this thing called the uplift effect, which is that ease that is created with the airflow up underneath from bird to bird to bird that's transferred from the front birds to the back birds. That uplift effect is something that I truly believe is a powerful part of why all therapy works. And so, though it's not an evidence-based model for therapy by no means, every therapy model that I know of and that I believe in still has that undercurrent of helping to pass information along and teaching something to the person who is hurting, who needs that help and support to help ease their journey. So that is the story of how I came to a place of believing in the uplift effect. So now you have a general gist of how the uplift effect came into being, why it was, what's the deal with the V formation and the birds. And I look forward to doing a variety of things here on this podcast. Most of it is going to center around moms and parenting and the challenges that are numerous when it comes to trying to navigate that journey together. But I want to leave you with something that I am borrowing from Brene Brown, because I think this really is the heart of what we all need to keep in mind when it comes to parenting kids. And what she says is that who we are in the world is a much stronger predictor of how our children will do than what we actually know about parenting. The real question is not, are you parenting the right way? The real question is, are you the adult that you want your child to grow up to be? And so we are going to be talking about that and a million other things. And I am so glad you are here. Thank you for listening. And I look forward to talking to you next time. Have a good week. Bye-bye.